Hello again. I'm sorry we're late. We had some hideous technical difficulties and other stuff because remember we're still doing a lot of work as well. We're trying to print stuff and ink cartridges exploded in the computer, wouldn't work, and oh, you've no idea. Then the guest, Mr. Griffin, he's not answering his phone. We had him on, then he disappeared. We can't get back on again. So I'm really sorry about this. Anyway, we'll get him on maybe Monday because tomorrow is Good Friday service, as I told you. So really sorry about this. These things happen. So sorry about that. So Mr. Griffin won't be on today. He won't be on. Definitely not be on. No. We'll try and get him on. We'll see what happens. So if I have to put an earphone on, you know what's happening. Anyway, welcome, and I hope you're all well. Let me read a wee bit of scripture now because we're approaching the Good Friday. And we've now done the Lord has met with the disciples. There's been the Last Supper, and now we're moving towards the garden. And I want to just read you a wee bit here from chapter 17, verse 14. Christ is addressing the disciples, and he said, "I have given them thy word, and the world hath hated them, because they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. I pray not that thou shouldest take them out of the world, but thou should keepest them from evil. For they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. Sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth." Amen. May God add the blessing to this, the public reading of his own infallible word. We're ending there at verse 17. A couple of things that I want to just point out to you. Do you see that? Verse 15 says, "I pray not that thou shouldest take them out of the world, but thou should keepest them from evil." So that's why I'm not a dispensationalist. I don't believe in this rapture thing where God takes us away out the road and keeps us out the way. You know, I don't believe it. And in the very end there it says, that thy sanctifying through the truth and the truth, thy word is truth. Thy word is truth. A great principle that we should live with, and we won't go far wrong if we remember that. So I know in the background we're trying to get Mr. Griffin on, but we'll see what happens. Other than that, you'll be stuck with me. His laptop froze. He's like some kind of dinosaur. He's older than me, you know, ladies and gentlemen. He's older than me. It's hard to believe. And he's the only man in the world I know that is more useless with a computer than me, because I'm terrible. It's interesting that the media describe me as the evil genius, the technical evil genius of Facebook and social media, yet I can hardly send an email. Bizarre. Anyway, I want to thank some people. Again, like the video, click subscribe, press the bell, comment below, okay? Can we see who's on the thing today? Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. I was touting this. We found a bundle of these when we were cleaning out the priory, and we found a load of these. And thankfully, somebody bought one. God bless you, brother. Thank you very much. But there's still another 4 left, guys. Come on, get rid of these things, and I'm going to have to climb up high and put them away again. Marty Leeds, how you doing? Nice to see you, Marty. Dustin McGuire, God bless you, brother. How are you? Sorry I kept you waiting. Gareth H. Jim caused Brexit. Well, not really, but they had a hand in it. The front page of the New York Times says I caused Trump. But he's not talking about me, he's talking about the whole Templar network, because we were banging out more memes and we were getting more hits than any the big guys, including Bannon. But that got us into terrible trouble, you have no idea. We were utterly smashed by the establishment. They went for us, I can tell you. Yeah. Probably cost us, I can't even tell you how much money, but they basically shut down everything, bank accounts, everything we had, they went for us like, no, you've no idea. So it wasn't the Russians, it was the Templars, and we're proud of it. But it cost us dear, I can tell you that. Really, really cost us dear. Something up there, I don't know what it is. Jason, Winpenny, very good, nice to see him. Anybody else in here? I don't know, I can't see the thing. Maybe further up, I don't know. We'll see. Take you guys have to do 10 things at one time. Here we go. There we go. Mr. McConnell's in. Nice to see you now. Paul Telford, good evening. How are you doing from sunny Liverpool? Yep. Good evening, Helen, sister. How are you doing? Yeah. There was somebody asking me. Tab. He's there. Jonathan Budun, Greth, old regulars. Yep. James Chan, Stone, up from Florida. Well, dude. Celtic Crusader, how you doing, Celtic Crusader? Batman, Niall McConnell. Liz Androkovich, greetings. How are you in Alberta, Canada? So, good to see all the gangs there. And there was somebody asking me something the other day, and I can't remember what it was. Can't remember. Just bear with me. Just bear with me, folks. We might be going to Mr. Griffin. If I can work this. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Don't know what I'm doing to this thing. Okay. Okay. So can everybody hear me here? Yep. Okay. I think so. Ambassador, God bless you. So yeah, so hopefully Nick can come on because he's got some very good evidence from very respectable scientists from Harvard and all these big places. Excellent. About this coronavirus and what's going on and what's happening. You know, and it's incredible. The circus is still rolling into town and people are still having it. EMS, nice to see you. Good afternoon. You know, can't remember. It's a strange thing, this internet stuff. I've got to say, everybody. The regular store link doesn't show your axe. Don't know about that. But the axe link is below. Try and get these guys, because I don't want to be climbing up ladders, putting these back up. But they're a nice thing. I mean, they're a really nice thing. Well, if you like this type of thing, you know, if you're a axe wielding maniac, I suppose. But I tell you what I don't like, folks. And I know everybody, apart from people like Johnson put in, I cannot understand. Right, this is me. Maybe it's an age thing. Hear me out. I can't understand why everybody's using these weird handles. I don't get it. Maybe if somebody's in a very sensitive job or something, I don't know. But I've got to the stage now where people are asking me questions. I'm saying to them, look, I understand you don't want to show your name in public, like on a public forum like this, but message me privately. But don't message me under this fake name. Message me under your real name. Because I'm a real man. You know my name. And I want to speak to you real men, and I want to know your real name. So it's really important. I had a guy on the other day, spent a long time with him, going back and forward, back and forward. The guy just couldn't get into his skull that there's no turning back the mass immigration problem in Western Europe. And his idea was, we'll just deport everybody. Really? 75 million Muslims are just going to go, yeah, I suppose it didn't work out. See you later. Bye. Come on. I mean, I don't know if it's just stupidity or immaturity. I don't know. Okay, Batman. Yeah, if you've got that. Oh, you're female. I beg your pardon, madame. Well, if anybody, it's no problem. But if people want to have a conversation with me, email me or send me a message, private message on Twitter or through the Templars contact page. Very secure, and I'll speak to you. But send me in your own name, because I've just decided now I am not going to respond to anybody who has not got a real name. It's just ridiculous because I'm getting so much weird people and strange people, and a lot of people I think are maybe even agents because they're asking very leading questions. So I don't know who these people are, so I ain't going to speak to them. Yeah, it's just one of those things, isn't it? And a lot of these boys are very strange. Okay, and some of you don't get it, Jim, but if I was trying to work with you... Yeah, of course. No, I don't get it. I really don't get it. I don't get any of it. I don't get any of this stuff. I find it bizarre, and I find all this online stuff very disturbing. YouTube and Facebook and all this stuff. Everybody's using fake names, and 9 times out of 10 there's no reason to use fake names. Like somebody said there, they've got a business and they need to be careful. I understand that. Maybe somebody's got a sensitive job, but nine times out of 10 there's no need for it. Just strange, you know. I looked at a guy the other day. I don't know what was his name. He's a big YouTube star. Morgoth Penguin. I mean, seriously, come on. You're a grown man. He's running a channel. I'm not talking about just people communicating. He's actually running a channel. Then there's another guy called Saragon of Arcade. Now, I know who he is, and he's a complete balloon. But only a balloon would give them such a ridiculous name and tout that amongst the public. It's immature. It's silly. I don't know. It's just, am I old? Am I not understanding how this works or what's happening? But I just find it utterly ridiculous. If I was going to make a YouTube channel, I'd do it me. I would just say, it's me, it's Jim Dowson, how you doing? I'm going to tell you something. What do you think of that? I wouldn't call myself, Zygon of Ubalumba. Come on. You've done that when you were like 7 or 8 year old, and these guys are going to save our countries. Really. Utter nonsense. And of course, when you meet these guys, they're exactly what you think. Pencil-necked weirdos. People you would not leave in the same room as kids for too long. No way. So, yeah, listen, John, I get it. I mean, there's some people who work in back. I get it. It's no problem. And you're not setting yourself up as some big spokesman or some kind of leader. But if anybody is setting themselves up as a spokesman or leader, they should have the courage to use their own name. And what I'm trying to say to you guys, I'm not getting at any use, understand? But what I'm saying to you is show some discernment, ladies and gentlemen. If you're following somebody online, but you don't know what their real name is, stop following them. Because if they've got a channel and they're trying to promote themselves as some kind of leader, but they've not got the courage to use their own name, ain't much a leader, are they? Because how much can you lead if nobody knows who you are? It's crazy stuff. It's madness. What we go? It's just lunacy. There's a new one. Cracky. Good day from Australia. Good day, Cobber. Was that good? I don't know. And don't be calling me a limey or a pommy, because I am an Ulster Scot. I don't know what he's called. It's maybe a lot worse than that. Okay. Good stuff. No, I don't think we're going to get Mr. Griffin on. Oh, we might be in luck. We might get him on. We'll see. In the meantime, while we're waiting for that, remember, good stuff. What was the thing I got this out for a reason, can't remember. Oh, aye. Swords. Wonderful swords. If you haven't already got one, get one. And remember, the Lord himself said, if you haven't got a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. Why? I'm not entirely sure, because I think he maybe knew something that we don't, and there's the finest sword you'll ever get. You'll be getting an email. We're now pushing really hard with this. We've actually ripped it off the Irish boys. The red and green cards, they'll be available all over the world. So you American lads can get your hands on these. They're free. It's just the postage that's included in it, but it's not an awful lot. But you can get these. They're totally free. Just about postage. And start going around your districts. That'll be going out today. That email will be going out today, guys. So watch out for it and get these cards ordered up, because we have to get them in the mail, because the mail at the moment is chaos. We don't know what's going on with the mail. It's madness. So hopefully they'll be out in nice time. Yep, let me see. Let me see now. Where is it?
We may not have video, but we can tell you at least.
Okay, let me try this, folks. Feel like a movie star now putting this in there. Need a makeup lady. Need a plastic surgeon, probably. Can you hear me, Nick? I can hear Mr. Griffin.
They can too, seconds.
Yep. I can hear Mr. Griffin. I need to clip this wretched thing in. I don't know what's going on. Don't know if that'll be possible. Stick it in my shirt here. Be alright. Okay. We've got some books coming out as well, ladies and gentlemen. You might be interested in that. The Templars are releasing a book very shortly. Quite a weighty book, hardback. And it's the sort of wisdom of the hidden Templar and how we deal with modern society. And it's not some book for pencil necks. It's a man's book, if you know what I mean. It's a solid book. Very good stuff. Hi, Niall. How you doing? Nick should be in the house in a minute, but we don't know. Yeah, it's a solid book. Very good quality. It's about 300 pages. And then we'll be running out some more stuff as the year goes on. But when this book comes out, it'll start be going to sale maybe in a couple of weeks. Now it's 300 pages hardback plus the postage, so it's not going to be dirt cheap. I think it's going to be something like, I don't know, maybe $30 or something like that. But it'll be it is a really good book. I mean, I've had a hand in looking over it. I'm not a writer, but I've had a hand in looking at it and seeing so. It's very good. So when that starts getting advertised, please order them up, pre-order, so we know how many we actually need to print. I mean, once they're pre-ordered, we can print them in less than a week. But I think we're going to pre-order sales for a month first, so we know exactly how many we need, and then order them. Now I hear something ringing in my ear.
2 seconds.
Is that you, Mr. Griffin?
Next there, so I'm just trying to get them on screen.
I can hear you. How are you, Nick?
Right, okay.
Massive.
2 seconds.
We should be on in a minute. Do you think that... Yeah, are we on?
You can talk to each other.
All right, how are you doing anyway? Now, you do know, Mr. Griffin, I've got chickens these days. I got some chickens.
I've heard you've got chickens,
Yes,
yes.
I got my first egg this morning, sir.
You sure like to get it?
Right, we're live
Oh.
now. Can everybody see us?
Oh, it's going to take a second before they can get through.
Might not. Don't know. I don't know what's happening. Yeah, I don't know. Yes, Dustin, you can see us. Yep, everybody can see us.
Can you hear it?
And can everybody... I can hear Nick. Can everybody hear Nick?
Yeah, I'm speaking here, if you can hear me.
Yep, I think everybody can hear. Yes, everybody can hear. Yep, we're all up and running.
But if one can, they all can.
That's
So
it.
there
We're
you
all
go.
up and running. We're all up and running. Okay. So, Mr. Griffin, just before, like the video, click subscribe, press the bell, comment below, because you do realise I get in terrible trouble if I don't do that. Okay, Mr. Griffin, we've got you on today, and I know me and you were speaking beforehand about some very interesting facts and figures that's came out from certain professors. Now, you need to tell me the name of the professor we want to talk about first. Who are we going to talk about first and what he said?
Well, the first one I'd like to talk about is Dr. John Ioannidis.
John Ioannidis.
Yeah,
Right, let's...
he's the younger of the two, dark-haired fella for your techie there to bring
wait
you
a
up.
minute. Wait a minute. Is that the young? What's he look like?
He's the
Younger
younger
one.
one. He's Greek, the other one's German.
Is it
So you're looking for a dark-haired chap.
dark-haired guy? Right. Well, it's not him. He's bald as a coot. Must be this fella then. Yep. Okay, we've got this guy. Now, would you like to tell the listeners, Mr. Griffin, what he's been saying, particularly about this carry on with the virus and all that, and who he is?
More quickly, Dale, I think you should probably better put the link in the comments there so people can see. But he put a video out, and this was an interview actually done on the 23rd of March, so it's a little while ago now. He's a professor of medicine and epidemiology at Stanford University, and he's one of their top key analysts of diseases and figures and so on. And way back on the 23rd of March, he wrote an article about before then entitled "A Fiasco in the Making," where he said that from what he'd seen as an expert, all the government policy was being done on the basis of totally unreliable data. And he explains in the video, which I hope the link will be there, he explains there's major gaps in the data. And in particular, he said that the World Health Organization has produced the panic in the political and media elite by talking about a 3.4% fatality rate. And he explains why in the video, why this is utterly fake, utterly false, utterly unreliable, because it's based on a huge underestimate of the number of people who are infected. He's saying many of them are without or with mild symptoms. And he said the real rate is probably even much lower than the 0.9% used by Imperial College, which is the report, of course, which has led to the chaos being imposed in Britain. And he goes on in this video, one of the most convincing things, simply because it's so simple. He says we do have a few examples where we've got a better picture of really reliable data. And he specifically points to the cruise ship, the Diamond Princess, where he said we've got a community of some thousands of people. They've all been in close proximity and they're infected. And on the Diamond Princess, you remember this was the cruise ship where, remember, apart from the crew, almost everybody on it is old.
Yes.
So in fact, this will be a far higher death rate than normal. So he said from the Diamond Princess, we know that there was more than 19% of people on the ship infected, which is consistent with basically once you get herd immunity, 80% are immune. The others got it. So 80% got immune, 19% were found to be infected, and that had a 1% death rate. And he was saying then there may be a few more deaths from people who are still in hospital from the ship, but basically that's it. A 1% death rate from a closed community of elderly people stuck there. So very, very effective. He then goes into the figures from Lombardy and said again that the Northern Italy, he said that the apparently terrifying figures had to be put into the context that as an expert, he's saying probably more than 20% of the entire population was infected.
Yep.
meaning the death rate is actually similar to that of normal flus.
Yeah, I agree. I think, hiya Frank, I don't think you need to be a scientist. This is what I don't understand. I mean, sometimes my wife said they should sack all the scientists and employ me to sit in a chair like this, and people come and ask me and I'll tell them I've got it right on evolution, I've got it right on everything. And this, from day one, I said this is nonsense, because probably at the moment 20 million people in Britain have got this thing. So if you put that in the context of 5,000 or 6,000 people dead, it's nothing. It's nothing. But what would worry me, Mr. Griffin, is the fact that the government know fine well that they're not stupid people. They know this. They know this. So why are they tightening and tightening and tightening down as if this is getting worse and worse and worse when it's not?
Indeed, it is interesting. As we said before, this is either an incredible example of mass panic, and I was speaking on another show I did yesterday. I've looked through the history books, and I can only find one example of a mass panic remotely similar, and that was in 1789, the Great Fear in France, where in the summer of 1789, at the start of the revolution, a story spread that either the aristos were burning the crops or robbers were burning the crops to push up the price of grain. And this complete fiction led to mass hysteria all over France. And a lot of experts looking at it since have said this was probably related to ergot poisoning, which is poisoning from people. There have been several bad harvests and people were eating mouldy rye. And so that panic was caused by mass poisoning. This one, of course, isn't caused by mass panic and by mass poisoning. So if it's caused by anything, it's caused by a different form of poisoning of the mind by the media. And again, Dr. John Ioannidis spoke about this, and he says in the video that a key part of the problem is that the media created a panic by focusing on deaths which were entirely within the normal range of a flu epidemic. As a result of the panic, he's saying specifically in Italy, they were taking people into hospital when they weren't really very ill, just because they got COVID. And that resulted in the system being overwhelmed by when people who were really ill came in. And of course, it turned the hospitals themselves into breeding grounds for a really serious level of infection. And there is evidence out there that if you just get sort of a touch of the coronavirus from somebody, a lightweight initial infection, it doesn't affect you as badly as if you in effect get an overdose of the bugs in the first place. So that's what was happening in Italy. Yep. So many people concentrated in it. This is why a lot of medics are dying, because they're getting a huge overdose, because there are a lot of people in the hospital with it. So that's what's overwhelming them.
Now, I just want to comment there, because I see somebody, Batman, popping up there and saying, my theory is that the attack is by the communists to bring down Trump and stop Brexit. No, there is a plot, but you've got it back to front. This is a plot by the West to completely smash China and to completely smash Russia by locking us down for 6 months. China's finished. Their economic base will be absolutely crushed, but they'll bounce back. But this is not them trying. We are trying to flatten our own economy because we have printed so much useless money. These guys, quite rightly, have said, your money's no good, we ain't taking it no more. So we have to smash our own economy. But the plot's working, because part of that plot is to get everybody to blame the communists. This is coming from us, my friend, not China. If China invented a bioweapon, it would not be killing our most unproductive members of society, our most expensive members of society, our old people, who a lot of capitalists want rid of anyway because they don't contribute in and they only cost money. The Chinese are more than capable of putting a bioweapon in that will kill all our young people. So you're on the right track, but what would you think? Am I right, Mr. Griffin, or do you think?
I'd say people just think it through logically. We've had for the last couple of decades just complete mass free trade across vast parts of the world, and this virus, globalism, and this virus is undoing globalism on a mega scale. So who was the main beneficiary nation of globalism and mass free trade? It was China. So there's no way that a nation whose whole economic model is based on global free trade, or as near as possible, that they were going to create something and unleash it with a view to smashing global free trade. The people who want to wind back global free trade are actually the Western elites, because they've realised they've had this free trade and China has won the game. So now they've got to try and rejig global free trade with China shut out of it. That's what's going on. Just to finish off on the mass panic thing, and to finish off on the good doctor from Stanford University before we go on to the next expert I really want to talk about, he said that in New York, the stress and the panic is adding to the problem of a health service which, as he said, in winter, all health services all over the Western world are pared to the bone because having excess capacity costs money. And especially in America, it's a very, very capitalist health system. So there are no spare intensive care unit beds and so on, because they would lose the money when they weren't used. So he said that always, every winter, with the standard flu virus almost overwhelmed or just overwhelmed, and then the panic has made it worse. And he specifically says it's the media focusing on every single death and every single rise, putting it out of proportion. He said the proportion is there are 60 million deaths a year on planet Earth. And if every single news station had a counter showing the deaths racking up moment by moment, people would be terrified. He said that's exactly what they're doing. He said the media, their irresponsibility is a key figure. So in this, he was saying that, as I say, back on the 23rd of March.
Yeah.
So now the one I'd like to people to look at is put up the other professor, the older chap.
Okay.
And that's the man, Professor Knut Witowski, who was at the Rockefeller University for 25 years and the head of the Department of Biostatistics and Epidemiology. So if he doesn't know what's going on, really, nobody does. And this interview, which he's done, still on YouTube at present, but I don't know how much longer for, was given on the 3rd of April. And this is a really, really powerful one. This actual expert said, he's asked, well, what's the best way of dealing with COVID-19? And he said, well, it's a respiratory disease. That's a simple fact. And there's one way to deal, only one way to deal with all respiratory diseases, because the common cold is connected with these. He said, we have no vaccine for the common cold. We have vaccines for flus, but they're not really very effective. There's only one way that we or nature deals with a respiratory virus. And he said, you have to protect the elderly and the fragile if you don't want them to die in huge numbers. So you have to lock them away. But then for everyone else, it's completely different. He said the only way to deal with it is to expose as many children as possible in school, because these children are genetically designed not to have bad responses to respiratory diseases. And they then carry the diseases back to their still quite young parents and families. And he said as long as the epidemic runs its course and the schools are in, then the virus, you get herd immunity. You get a rapid peak and a rapid decline of the cases, and you get herd immunity in 4 weeks. At that point, the virus is extinguished because it can't transfer because so many people are already immune, and the elderly can go back and rejoin their families.
Yeah, I agree.
And he said that's it. When herd immunity reaches 80%, that's the only thing which stops a respiratory virus. He said, it is massively hit respiratory viruses in the summer weather because they can't live outdoors and in sunlight and in warm weather. So the only other way to deal with them is to get as many people outside as possible.
Yeah.
So he's saying what our governments are doing is actually the worst thing they could possibly do, because they call it flattening the curve. He said what they're actually doing is extending the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because they're keeping it alive, and then they're also telling everyone to go inside. So he said they're creating the conditions in which the virus survives longer than otherwise. And he said as a result of this, it's absolutely inevitable now, because we haven't yet got herd immunity because so many people have been shut away, that the moment the restrictions are relaxed, they'll come back. And in particular, they won't come back that much in the summer. But he said this is guaranteed that in the autumn, we will have a second wave. It presumably means the government will then have the need or the excuse to lock us all away again and do even more damage to the economy. And also he goes into the way in which it's not just about money. This is also doing enormous damage to people's health.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you think about it, if they let this rip through the schools, through the main community, so that there was then herd immunity, then the old people who most of them locked away survived would have been safe.
Yeah.
Now they're going to get the second wave, and lots more, even of the old people, are going to die as well.
Yeah, I quite agree. Yeah, I mean, it's possibly they're doing all the things that you just wouldn't do. And you know, I'm not a brain of Britain, but you know, my mother, my grandmother used to say, if you remember you had the old measles party and the chicken pox parties, you'd all be dragged down. Johnny at the end of the streets get chicken pox. Get your kid down there. Everybody gets it. Job done. Now I've seen some comments there. People were having excuse me, saying, why is Trump doing this? Why is Trump doing this? This is my opinion, Mr. Griffin. You know, I'm fond of Donald Trump. And I don't think necessarily our governments are doing a bad thing. Now, let me be very clear. There is absolutely not 1% of a doubt in my mind that this has been deliberately manufactured to utterly smash our economies. But let's be fair to Mr. Trump and Mr. Johnston here. The alternative could be 10 times worse. Because our money is worthless. Did you know this, people? Every dollar in your pocket, or every pound in your pocket, or every euro in your pocket has already been spoken for 6,000 times. So our money is worth 6,000th of its face value. So why wouldn't China, Russia, India and the BRIC companies say, your money's no good, we're going to give you the proper exchange rate? Folks, that would plunge us into something akin to when the Romans pulled out of Britain. It would be over for us, and it would be over forever. And death and destruction would reign. So perhaps our governments and perhaps Donald Trump is pushing this, we know he is, but it's an attempt to smash the world banking system, the way it's been set up at the moment, to smash the free trade thing with China having it all their own way, and to utterly destroy the growing power of Russia, China and all the rest of it. Is that a good thing and a bad thing? Well, time will tell, but I don't think he's doing it because he doesn't know what he's doing. And I don't think he's on the Chinese side, that's for sure. He knows if he can keep China from selling their tat to the West for 6 months or a year, China's finished on that basis, and then we can lock them out, and who knows. So I don't think we should be too ready to point fingers at people at this stage, because who knows what the alternative would be. But what worries me, Mr. Griffin, I don't know if what you think about this, is from history we learned that when politicians seize uncontrolled power, which we've all got now, we're all run by decree rather than run by government. It's a devil of a job getting the power back off them. Can you see the government's handing back the power to the people anytime soon?
Just before I answer that, Jim, just coming back to Donald Trump, I think there is another possible explanation there. As with his attempts to reach a sensible way of living with Russia, as with his initial attempts to get America out of the Middle East, Trump does a lot of things which essentially are right. His instincts are good, but then he's bullied and fooled by a combination of his advisors and the mass media. Yeah. And I think, and for that matter, Johnson as well, started off saying, we'll go for herd immunity. Then all of a sudden they change. So I think that they might actually simply be bullied and pushed off a sensible course, because otherwise, especially with Donald Trump coming up for election, he's thinking, if I'm going to have every single bit of the mass media on my back, and every person whose grandma dies is going to blame me personally, I'm not going to get re-elected. So I think there's an element of that there. As for what would happen if they didn't do this and there was a collapse in the capitalist banking system economy, well, I suppose people might hang bankers. I wouldn't regard that as a particularly bad thing. They might hang a lot of politicians. People call me a politician, but I'll take my chances on that. Again, I don't think it'd be a terribly bad thing.
For the bankers.
But I think you would get revolutionary change, and you'd have a huge amount. It wouldn't be the end of the world. It'd be the end of an utterly corrupt banking system for which there are proven alternatives. So it would destroy the existing system, and at the end of the wreckage of that, things would get rebuilt on a much better basis. No, I don't think things would be worse. So I don't think they're protecting us from something. This is a giant scam, as you say, to get rid. It's a controlled demolition of a banking system and a financial system which is in utter ruins because of the debt level. And then they'll come back, which is something much tighter. Basically, it's going to go for supposedly free trade capitalism. I think the banks and the central governments are going to bail out the really big boys. This is going to be a sort of corporate fascism.
That's what I heard today. That's funny you should say that. I heard that. I heard the guy doing that phrase there. I never heard it before. Nationalist, capitalist, fascism. Well, I'm quite. I don't
agree with that nationalist, because these people aren't nationalists.
No,
they're internationalists.
I know what you mean.
It'll be international. It'll be international. Other than the fact they'll try and shut out China, they'll try and shut out Russia, they'll try and shut out Iran and Turkey. They'll try and shut out India in due course. I don't think they'll manage it. I think this is potentially going to be. It's the swan song of the West, of the West capitalist elite trying to control the world. I don't think they're going to do it. But to answer directly your question about politicians relinquishing power, I think you're absolutely right that it's it's totally natural. Once, I mean, anyone's got power, they feel uncomfortable about relinquishing it, and especially with the political elite connected closely with finance. So no, they will. They'll seize this power and they will use it. And you watch that as the public pressure builds up, and more and more people understand that the way they've tried to deal with this minor level health crisis is actually a catastrophe. Then they will start stamping on the people who are talking about it. Now, you're already seeing on Facebook, for instance, just the other day, there was a huge purge of perfectly ordinary sites, people's pages, just because they posted a meme in some way questioning the way the coronavirus is being dealt with by their government. So we're going to see a lot of that, and you'll see people put in prison.
Yeah.
You know, this wouldn't be surprising.
Probably me.
All over the Western world, Germany, France, places like this. There's hundreds of people in Germany for questioning exactly what happened in the Second World War.
Yeah.
In the death camps.
Yeah.
So given that they say that's only a matter of historical memory. So really, it's why on earth should anyone be locked up for that, even if they are mistaken. But in this case, they'll be able to say that people calling into question the lockdown, thereby weakening the lockdown, they're costing lives, they're killing old people and so on. Therefore, we must lock them up.
Yep.
So I think we're going to see an awful lot of that. You can see it, I think, in the way that this one thing is being allowed all over social media, not being clamped down on at all, strangely, is people sending out videos, some of them genuine, some of them actually clearly fake, because they're clearly old videos of especially Muslims in Britain, but also Orthodox Jews and so on, running around and doing normal things like playing cricket in the park, sitting on the beach, or going to funerals. And these people are actually being demonized for that. And there's a lot of people on the right joining in as an excuse to bash the Muslims or bash the Jews. On this case, they're absolutely wrong, because actually they should be saying these Muslims and these Jews are doing exactly what we should damn well do. Get out there and defy the government. And the second of the two professors that I was talking about, he actually finishes his video, having demolished the way in which this is presented. He finishes it by saying that people need to be, what this really shows is that people need to be less docile. They need to stand up to their politicians. They need to question them more, and they need to stand up for their rights, because otherwise we're never going to get out of the power that the politicians have seized during this.
Well, I agree 100%, and the good professor is right. But here's my point again: we have millions of people. There's millions of people in this country. America's a wee bit better because they're brought up with guns, and a very high proportion of Americans have been military people. Scotland's much this. We've got a lot of people in the military. Northern Ireland, masses of people in the military. But certainly in England and Germany and places like that, most of our young people couldn't pull the skin off a rice pudding. I mean, they're all into these online parties, and they're all into YouTube, and they're all talking there as if they're going to assume power. I mean, I've actually heard some of these guys saying, when we're in power. They haven't even got an office. They haven't even got a branch office, never mind an HQ. And they've absolutely no money because they don't ask for money. Well, I would say any political party that doesn't ask for money, or any organisation that's planning to take over the country who doesn't ask for money, I'd be very suspicious, because somebody's paying them. But, this is the nonsense we've got. And these are the same people who won't use their real names. I had a conversation the other day with a guy. I told him, who's a member of one of these new so-called patriotic parties. And I said, look, give me your real name and I'll talk to you. No problem. I'll try and help you out. He wouldn't give me his real name. So this is a guy is part of a movement that's going to take over the country. But if you actually look at them and profile them, and this is the problem with a lot of YouTubers, they're normally between 18 and 26. Nearly all virgins, some kind of weird incels. Living in with their mum in the back bedroom, but the output they're putting out there in the public, you think, wow, we really have something serious to take us forward. And it turns out it's a really weedy, skinny, dying-looking creature who's never been out with a girl. One whiskey would knock him on his back, but in his bedroom he transforms into Chuck Norris. That's the problem. And I think the last generation of real fighting people were probably born in the 60s, and they're now of an age where our fighting days are over, more or less. So I agree with everything you say, Nick, But, you know, if we have to fight to regain our power, just the same as our forefathers had to fight to get to get democracy, where are these fighters going to come from?
I think they'll, just one thing by the way on, I agree with everything you said there, Jim, although I will say, looking at my screen here, that at least the YouTubers, pencil neck though many of them are, at least the captions on their videos are the right way around. I think you'll find that everybody looking at this is seeing Nick Griffin and Knights Templar HQ backwards.
No, that's
so that ought to be,
that's just you. It's only you seen that.
Is it just me? Is it? Well, thank heavens for that. Good. So we are confident.
Yeah.
The money donated hasn't been wasted after all.
Could have been a code. Could have been a deep Templar code.
So where will the fighters come from? Well, if we're right about this being a corporate fascist clampdown with the police state powers, it's not going to come anytime soon.
No.
And in particular, they will do what they always had in mind when they created mass immigration into the West. It was always about making sure that their repression and their exploitation, if people ever stood up to it and revolted against it, that the masses could be divided amongst themselves.
Yeah.
And if we end up fighting anybody, it'll probably be fighting the Muslims rather than fighting the elite who've imposed this disaster on all of us. Whether we're fighting the Muslims or fighting them to get our freedoms back, it'll take several generations. So the ones who will fight will be the generation who are probably now in their cradles or not yet even born, which gives us a bit of a problem because there aren't many of those in the wide world. But there's still a fair few. And once they start fighting, it'll be grand in terms of winning. But it's going to take a long, long time. As you say, anyone who says they can win now, politically or any other way, it's a nonsense.
They're deluded. I mean, they're either absolutely mental or they're an 18-year-old spotty buffoon. And I don't mean that in a nasty way, because when I was 18, I was spotty and I was a buffoon. There you go. Some folk would say it never left me. But when you're young, you're so stupid. An older person can easily manipulate. Anybody who's started shaving knows there ain't no way you're going to win any elections anytime soon. But no, I think you're right. I think that's what happened, and it's happened in Ireland. I mean, look at the history of Ireland. Any time either side was trying to break away from England, the old sectarian card was stirred up, and Catholics ended up fighting Protestants and vice versa. And that's the way it is. But no, young people, there is a big problem. I mean, the last time I was arrested, well, thrown in jail. I was arrested with you not that long ago. But before that, I was protesting about our national flag being removed, and I was thrown in the back of a prison van with a lot of young guys, 19, 20. Now, when I was 19 and 20, I was like a Tasmanian devil. I'd have fought anything. But these guys were sitting in the back. Some of them were bubbling their wee eyes out, saying, "Oh, we're going to jail." I was pulled out of a car with 4 machine guns around me and thrown into a van. But these kids, they have no resistance to persecution. They have nothing, because when I went to school, and I'm sure you were the same, we used to get caned and we used to get beaten mercilessly by these rather sadistic teachers in a lot of cases who were nearly all ex-army guys, so they were all crazed from the First and Second World Wars. So we were used to violence being inflicted on us. We were used to punishment. We were used to having to sit in cold, freezing cold classrooms. They can't even stand a bit of cold weather now. Now I mean getting beaten mercilessly around the face with a cricket bat. So, the big talk about us fighting the Muslims, there won't be much fighting, certainly not in Britain. There won't be much fighting involved in it. I don't think it'll last too long. I think the Muslims will be they'll be amazed at how utterly easy. We've seen Tommy Robinson when he came up against the Muslims in that housing estate in Oldham. They just ran away. Pathetic. Can you imagine anybody trying to invade a working class housing estate in England? Never mind Belfast in the 1970s. They'd have been massacred. They would have been massacred. But that working class toughness is now gone, because a lot of these guys in that housing estate don't work. They used to work in the mills and the pits. They were tough men. They've not only lost their physical toughness, I think they've lost their mental and emotional, spiritual toughness, because they've been deliberately robbed of their self-respect as men by society, by successive governments. Would you agree with that?
I would. And crucially, they've lost sense of community.
Yeah.
And people don't come out to defend themselves. You defend yourself by staying in your house. That's the best way to defend yourself. Yeah. So looking at it, if there's a mob outside,
good point.
You come out to defend your community. And they've lost, all the sense of community has been destroyed, which means that anyone, whatever they're planning to do, whether it's to bang their heads against the electoral brick wall for another 15 years until they realise it's futile, or whether they're thinking of organising some other kind of cultural resistance, getting our people away from the system, or whatever they're thinking of doing. The first thing they need to do is to start concentrating on building a sense of community, partly amongst their own people, but that actually is very easily done, really. Once you had a few, camping sessions and conferences and so on, you should have a sense of community amongst your own people. But it's about creating a sense of community between our people and those around them.
Yeah.
And that's where people have got to get out to the people, which is still not being done by enough people. But, there we go. I think you're right about the young. It's not their fault. No. A large part, I think we now see another reason why Tony Blair and his advisors were so keen to get so many young people to university, because once they're in university, the brainwashing stage is really goes wild. Or even if they resist the brainwashing, they've now got a debt, they've got a chance of a career, so they're part of the system, they're corralled. Having young working class men especially roaming around unemployed or with jobs that don't really matter to them is dangerous, and they've basically eliminated the working class, and those are the people ready to fight. It's always, they're the ones who provide the raw material, the vast numbers in any war. They're always the ones who come out and defend their community, not least because working class communities are more cohesive and tighter. So people do come out, because your next door neighbour, and your next door neighbour lives close to you. If you're living on a posh housing estate, your next door neighbour's 80 yards away and you don't know them in any case.
Agree.
So getting rid of the working class has caused terrible problems. So I do foresee, and people probably say, "Oh, we're blackpilling here." No, I refer to it as a steel pill. Actually, it's the realistic thing.
Absolutely.
The realistic thing.
Well, I seen a comment there, Nick, and it's very indicative of these people who are following these online, schoolboy parties. Somebody was talking about, and they're quite right. There is an IQ deficiency now in Britain because we've lost so many men in the war, and anybody when he get up and goes got up and went. Mainly America. So Americans, you've got the best of us. But, there is this arrogance, and I've noticed this with all these YouTube groups, there's this intellectual arrogance. This is a wee pencil neck, weedy wee guy, couldn't get a lid off a jam jar. But he's looking down on the working class masses. Well, as you just rightly said there, when push comes to shove and the rifles are produced, it's the working class lads who are doing the fighting and doing the dying. And I'm a working class lad, and I come from the back streets of the East End of Glasgow. And I have a pet, utter hatred, as you well know, I've spoken to you often enough about it. I despise this intellectual snobbery, because when push comes to shove and there's punches to get thrown, it's not the intellectuals that's standing on the street toe to toe with the Muslims or anybody else. It's the working class lads. So let's lay off the working class lads and by the way, just because you've been to university does not mean to say you've got a higher IQ than a guy from a council estate. It just means you've been stupid enough to go and get yourself into tens of thousands of pounds worth of debt for a job that doesn't exist, and you're going to be the best educated, most indebted burger flipper in McDonald's.
Yeah, absolutely right, Jim. Obviously, I'm a middle class background, but I was throughout most of my time in the National Front, and then all my time in the BNP, I was, apart from a few elderly eccentrics, I was basically the only middle class person there. One of the reasons I was the leader, because I had a good education and all the rest of it. But I have nothing but contempt for all the middle class people who rushed off to UKIP and so on. It was a form of cowardice with them, because they knew what the problem was. They knew the problem wasn't really the EU. The problem was mass immigration. It wasn't really immigration from Poland that was the problem. It's immigration from places like Somalia and Pakistan.
Yeah,
but they were so scared of being accused of being racist or extremist and losing their social status, and also so scared of getting a brick through the window, that they ran and hid in various cowardly organisations. I've got no time for them at all. So I'm pleased that at least if you go back 10 or 15 years, there were no middle class youngsters looking at our kind of politics and getting involved in any way, shape or form. So I'm pleased to see them getting involved and looking. But like you, I cringe and feel a great deal of contempt every time I get here this sneering at the working class and the thick-necked thugs of the BNP and so on. When you're up against the real left, when you're up against real hard men from the young Muslim community, then you actually want some fairly tough-necked, short-haired, rough fellas. And just because they speak with a northern accent or a Birmingham accent or whatever does not make them stupid.
No.
Absolutely not. They have a less of an education. As a result of having less of an education, they're less indoctrinated. This is why, if you look at the voting patterns for these people who think there may be hope, getting people elected and so on, look at the voting patterns. The more educated people are, the more they vote for the left. If you get sufficiently educated, you end up voting Green.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
Listen, I come from a people, the Ulster Scots, the Protestant loyalists of Northern Ireland, and we are often slated throughout the world as being, because we're the same blood as the American Appalachian hillbillies. They're our people, it's the same tribe. And we're both in Appalachia and here in Ulster, we're regarded as Bible bashing backwoodsmen, old daft. Look at the percentage of those people who make up the American army. Look at the percentage of my people here in Britain that make up the British Army. We don't need to go to university, and as you say, the more educated you become, the more brainwashed you become, and you're more likely to be left wing. So if we look consciously, and I never allowed any of my kids. I put my foot down. I didn't want any of them to go to university. And I said, if you go to university, it'll fall out with you. Because we look and we see people going into those gates, good kids, and we see them coming out with green hair, bones through their nose, and they're lesbians and a black boyfriend. No, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
So we see that and we reject it. If we're called stupid and backward for that, fine. But I'd just like to give you this before we go, because I have to go. And there's also, folks, there's a link up there. Anybody still hasn't joined the Templars, please consider doing so, because you will get a, don't know where it's went, but anyway, you'll get a nice certificate and a nice package. No idea what it is. Anyway, one of the things that I've noticed, and I'm sure you've noticed it, in Hungary, for example, in Poland, a lot of young guys are more or less asked or forced, if they want to join the political party, the right-wing party in the town, they have got to take part in boxing classes and things like that. Now, I know in Hungary, the young guys we knew who were young lawyers, they were all young legal professionals, can't remember the name of the group, but all of them were into kickboxing. In fact, the leader was the Hungarian champion kickboxer. And I think, if, for example, some of these parties that we see online at the moment, and all these young guys are saying we can do this, we can do that, and they're talking about IQ. If there was a rule made that you had to do at least one night a week in boxing, how many of these imbeciles, these little cowards, these dweebs would be weeded out, and you'd end up forming a party of good, solid, young, bright young men, or not so bright young men, but they'd be men of character and men of honour. And I know, Mr. Griffin, you are a bit of a champion boxer in your day, but do you think that would work here? I know it works in Hungary, I know it works in Slovakia and Poland. Do you think that would work here in Britain or America?
Well, if it works in other places, then why wouldn't it work here? And there's subsections of the YouTube new growth of people who sort of think up here they're nationalist in their heads at present, whether they are in their hearts and guts yet, so we haven't yet seen. But there are subsections within that who do get together. Basically, a lot of them at present, they're giving up on the people who claim to be organising or talking for them, and just privately getting together, forming local groups and doing things in their local community, forming their own boxing clubs. Because of course there is a perceived problem anyway, that if you start putting people into boxing clubs, especially if it's connected to a political party, then you're going to get accused by the left and looked at by the police, but you're organising paramilitary to use physical force for political purposes, all this sort of nonsense. So it's a little bit difficult, but this is another reason for saying actually we're not interested in politics, because the time for politics is gone. We're simply interested in preparing our people for what we think is coming and in making them better as individuals. And one of the things we're doing with that is boxing or other martial arts.
Amen.
And I'm absolutely sure that it would sort out the men from the boys. I think you would also, at the end of it, once the pencil net ones are gone away, you would see, I think you'd be surprised, because you have a down on the English. And to say one thing about you saying about the Scots there and what great fighters you need, you produce under one circumstance, with a good English officer, then you're damn good fighters.
Mr. I agree. I agree.
But yeah, I think that
he's right. He's right.
Once something like this did weed out the ones who think of themselves as Nietzschean supermen when they couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag, I think that the ones who are left would be more than you think, and they would be more use than you think, providing they're given things which are worth doing. So I don't give up any hope at all on young people. It's just that at present they're not winnowed. The chaff, this is the way they used to, having bashed the wheat, they used to throw it in the air and the chaff would get blown away in the wind, and then the real wheat would fall back to the ground, and that's what we want.
Yeah.
And that needs to be done. The winnowing of the new generation of nationalists in places like Britain and America, it's going to happen. There's two ways it can happen. It's either going to happen through circumstances as they come face to face with police repression on a terrifying scale, as they come face to face with an economic depression of an appalling scale, and as they come face to face with real tough young men from the Muslim and the black communities. It's either going to happen like that, the nasty way, or the leaders can set about the winnowing process now in a sensible way with things like boxing clubs. And to a degree, it started, to name one name, to be fair enough, Mark Collett, the Patriotic Alternative. He's encouraged and he's led by example there, getting youngsters saying, you want to get on these serious wolf runs, which is, what was it, wolf? It's basically woodland and bog and so on. And these are serious. You can't go on a 10 or 12 mile run through the most appalling and deliberately horrible conditions without having trained for it now, without having got a little bit tough.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of thing which needs to be rolled out. And then once people are a bit tough and fit, then the real test of character comes not when you're competing against yourself or against the clock. The real test of character only comes when in some physical way you're competing, you and one man across the side of a ring, and one of you is going to get the crap beaten out of you. But that one's going to be the one who gains most.
I was going to say that bogs don't fight back, so I'm sure a lot of these wee pencil necks would be quite into that. But I've never known a bog to punch you in the face. But I take your point. It's a good start. And you were also very right about English officers, because when I was in the forces, we that's it. Scottish regiments, we don't like moving forward unless we've got an English officer, because we're all absolutely crazed, and we need somebody who's level-headed and sensible and brave. And let me tell you, people out there, because the English people, a lot of the upper classes, speak with a very posh accent, do not be fooled. The toughest men, and I mean mentally and internally, that I have ever met in my entire life, every single one of them has been an Englishman. Now, I've met far more ferocious Irishmen, far more ferocious Scotsmen, but I'm talking about long-term, that deep grind that drives everybody into the ground. Well, the Scots and the Irish, we'd end up just taking to the bottle and going absolutely berserk with one of these one night. But the English, they can hack the pace. They're the same as the Germans. When the Germans and the English, they're hard people to move forward. But when they do move forward, world, watch out. Simple as that. So no, I've nothing. I'm not being particularly down on the English or our young people. But I do think, like years ago, when people sort of went through a 7-pop process when you were young, is who the tough guys were. That was all worked out by 15. But now with the internet, nobody's interacting. So young guys are sitting thinking they're tough guys at 23, 24, never had a punch up in their life, and then when it does come down on them, they collapse. And I think we need something, and we need to be really putting out, not mollycoddling people and making excuses for them. If they are grown men, they need to take their own destiny in their hands. I think everybody should join the forces, even if it's part-time, like the National Guard in America, the Territorial Army here, the Army Cadets. If somebody tells me they're a young nationalist, they're 18-year-old, and they're a hardcore British or American nationalist, and they ain't in the National Guard, or they ain't in the TA, or they ain't in the cadets, or they're not in a militia, they're full of BS. Simple as that. Why wouldn't they want to go weapons training? Why wouldn't they? It's nonsense. So I'd be very careful with these people. There's a lot of people who like sitting online talking and talking and talking, and these people are disruptive. I think if people have put themselves into like boxing clubs and things like that, it's very healthy for their mind and their body and for their respect levels to other men. Because you very seldom find boxing people aggressive or cheeky. They're normally very passive and decent people, because they don't need to be nasty and snipey and bitchy, because they're proper men. I think we might... well, listen. Like the video, click subscribe, press the bell, comment below. We're going to have to go. We tried to make up for some of the time we've lost. I want to thank Mr. Griffin, give you the final word. Thanks again for coming on, Mr. Griffin. I thought what you said today there with these two professors was bang on. I think it's what people wanted to hear as well, just because this is a very unsettling time. The government is doing their best to terrify us all. So is there anything you would like to leave with us as your parting shot, Mr. Griffin?
I suppose coming back to the second professor, and he was saying, look, this is something where millions of Brits have already got it. The vast majority of people don't even know they've had it, or it's very, very mild. So do not be scared that you're going to get this thing. and it's going to be really, really nasty. That's really nasty for so few people. It's nothing to be frightened about. Yes, there's a little bit of a risk, especially if you're over 60 and you've eaten too many pies. I'm over 60. I've eaten too many pies.
Yep.
So has Boris Johnson. It's one of those things. But it's a choice you make. If you want to, as Boris Johnson said, he said for years he's binged on chorizo, sausage and cheese night after night. And I can tell you as a middle-class Englishman that no middle-class Englishman binges on chorizo and cheese without also destroying 1 or 2 bottles of Rioja. That's the way it goes. If someone makes that choice and does it for years and years, I'm afraid at the end you've got to live with the possible consequences. You might shuffle off your mortal rather quicker than otherwise. But if you're young and fit and healthy, this is not going to kill you. Simply get out there, do everything that you normally would, because if you haven't yet had it, the sooner you get it, the sooner you will contribute to the herd immunity, which is the only thing which is going to long-term protect your grandma or your elderly parents or whatever. So go about your normal life as much as you possibly can, and don't sneer at the Muslims or the Orthodox Jews doing this. Get out and do the same thing, and as carefully as possible, break what they're telling us to do, because what they're telling us to do is either a terrible, disastrous error, or it's a piece of sheer, unadulterated evil. So don't obey them. Get out, enjoy the air, get your kids out in the air, and if there's a cop around the corner, just leg it. Because if your lungs are good, you'll be fine.
And most of our cops now are fat lumps and never catch you, so don't worry about it. Well, listen, that's all from us. Thanks very much, Mr. Griffin. I'm sure our visitors in Canada, America, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and Ireland, and our own people here in Britain have thoroughly enjoyed their contribution. Thanks very much, Mr. Griffin. If you don't mind, if you can maybe come on next week sometime, it'd be great to see you again, great to hear from you.
There's more to say. I'll look forward to coming back.
Excellent.
Cheerio.
Thanks very much. Well, that's all for today, folks. I'm sorry we had the technical glitches earlier on. Thank you for your patience for waiting on us. We do appreciate it. As usual, the conversation can be a bit rambunctious, can be very direct and very straight, but we're not here to tickle your ears, as an old preacher friend of mine used to say. We're here to tell you the truth, and sometimes that might ruffle your feathers up the wrong way, but we do it because we love you, we love our countries, and we love our God. That's it. And, if we upset some people now and again, I'm not sorry in the slightest. That's what we're here to do. I just hope it edifies you in the long run and builds you up as a man, as a woman, as a follower of Christ, and as a soldier of Christ. Okay, that's all from me. Remember, tomorrow is our religious service because it's Good Friday. 6 o'clock, we'll be here, we'll be all prepared, and we will have a very nice service to remember the sacrifice of our Lord as he went to Golgotha and shed his blood for sinners such as us. And remember, until tomorrow, stick close to God, you won't go far wrong. Dus fault.
The threat is real, and we are on the front line. In a world of misinformation and attacks from the left and mainstream media, censorship, deplatforming, it is time to call out the fake news and bring you the truth. We are the Knights Templar. Visit our website and join today. We are the Resistance. Deus Vult.